All right, we'll call the meeting to order, Board of Finance meeting for November 15th, 2023. In attendance are myself, Mike Anderson, Dan Smith, um, Sarah Nelson, Carl Johnson, Gary Nino, Amy Friend, and Winona Burdine. Am I pronouncing that right? It's W-I, that's why Nona. Winona. Winona. Burdine. Burdine. How do you want to pronounce it? Okay. That's what I thought, but I thought Winona was perfect.
Anyone watching this recording, just know you can skip.
Um, any public comment? No public. Correspondence, we do have, the email that Bob Carlson sent out regarding, the field trips. And Gary's gonna do his best to attend. Is anyone else planning to attend? Carl? Good. Amy? Okay. Okay, Winona is too. Um, so that'd be great if you guys can do that, because I can't go. It'd be good to have some firsthand looks at the equipment. The other one was we had a tuition email. I don't know if it went to everybody. I think it just went to me. I did. Oh, well, I'm gonna forward this right now to you guys. I thought this was from today. There was a question, Carl had posed a question, I believe, regarding how many tuition students we had going elsewhere. So, um, oh, I hate these Outlook when it. Yeah. Keep scrolling. It's still saying Outlook for iOS.
Out of district students that we pay for, 5 marine science, 1 regional multicultural magnet school, 1 at Three Rivers, 1 at Winthrop Magnet School in New London, and 1 at STM Middle School, New London. 9.
Thanks, Winona. You got that, Amy? We don't really know what each one costs, though.
There's a line item in the budget, I recall, that's the tuition for
Right,
each of them.
right. Not for each of them, I think.
No, for
I
the
think it's
combined total.
Combined total, yeah. Do you have that combined total somewhere? Christine?
The question at hand is, what's our net tuition, cost per student? based on kids going out, kids paying tuition, kids staying in town. So for the kids that are attending Wheeler school system, what is the total tuition per child?
Right. That's the question, not necessarily what other towns are paying to
No,
come
I-
here.
It was just a question of, we're sending kids out, we got tuition kids coming in, we've got so many kids going to school here. What's our cost per student here as a result of the ins and outs?
Would you include the tuition or would you subtract the tuition?
I would net it all out, because we pay tuition to go out, we bring tuition in,
Right, so.
and that
sorry, so-
leaves X many kids going to our school system costing Y.
So you would subtract both? Or would you? I know, I'm trying to figure out his formula. I'm just trying to do the math.
So,
You want to subtract
so
both?
the kids
think-
going out is a gazauda.
Yeah.
Tuition's being paid to the school system is a
Is it
gazinta.
plus? Okay.
Kids that live in the town, the net result cost X amount of dollars per student.
I don't think you would include the tuition that we're bringing in because that's part of the overall allocation that the Board of Ed gets. So it's not, it's not additional money
That's
that
not,
they're
yeah,
getting.
but that's fine, but that's not what I asked for.
Okay.
I'm looking for a pure cost per student, because we keep hearing that, we're bringing $300,000 in and that should be part of the school's budget because we're bringing tuition in. And yet we fail to identify tuition going out. So I want to see a pure net zero cost per student. So, we were told it's pretty easy to produce. So I'm not seeing it yet.
To answer prior questions, the regular tuition line is $300,000. The VOAG tuition line is $22,000. And the magnet school tuition line is $49,875.
322 and 49.
49,875.
Look up above. The next line up, same number, is in the teachers' salaries, says tuitions.
But I think that's tuition for teachers to take classes, not for us to send students places.
I thought she mentioned it was for not underdeveloped, or what do they call it? Special needs.
I think that's the 300,000 is that one.
Okay,
So we have a,
same line number.
22,000 was what? BOAG?
VOAG, yep.
so it's about 370 out, going out. So Gary, for the math question, the tuition coming in doesn't actually go into their budget. So would you have us subtract it? Because that's funding the town's getting? Or would you, I don't know that, I'm trying to decide whether I would subtract it or add it at all.
I would be happy if Christine gave us the three numbers and let us figure out how to do the math. Not this Christine Wagner.
No, it's not Christine anymore. There is a new chair.
Well, okay, so regardless, we shouldn't have to do the math here. It was
I
a
know.
simple ask.
I understand, but I don't know that I'm aligned with the puts and the takes. Like, I want to understand why we would add some versus subtract some, because the tuition coming in doesn't actually hit their budget. So I don't know that it reflects the cost per student.
Okay, so from my perspective, the ask keeps coming that we're bringing tuition in and they would like carte blanche to apply it to the Board of Education budget.
Correct.
I'd like to see the three numbers so we understand, because I don't know how far apart the tuition out is from the tuition in.
We-
And I would like to know the metric of what it costs to put a Wheeler student through the Wheeler program per student.
I mean, but we have those three numbers. Like, we have it in the budget. We know what the tuition coming back is. We've looked at it every year. It counts as a revenue in our town budget. And then you just gave us the tuition going out. And then we have their overall budget. So what's,
So
Is
they're all-
there
all-
some
all
logic?
Budget minus what they paid out, divided by how many students, is technically the price per student.
Do you have the student number? The
Oh.
number of students?
No.
No.
No,
The
no, no.
total
the full-
numbers.
In the
nine-
district.
Yeah, but-
total.
But there were other components, I thought, because there were kids going to special programs outside the school system. I mean,
And I think I think that's the 300,000 number is the ones going outside of,
okay.
I think that's the
So-
other.
So fundamentally, Sarah, yeah, we potentially have all the substrate to do the math, but the Board of Education should be able to provide the numbers to us.
Yeah.
Clear, concise, irrefutable.
Well, that's, I think, the point, like, they need to explain their logic.
Yeah.
Because it's not obvious logic.
Exactly.
I think I'll just reply to Stephanie Mastriani and say, you know, we got these numbers, but can you give us either the total cost that each one of these programs, the marine science, multicultural magnet, Three Rivers, Winthrop Magnet, and STM Middle School. But I'm kind of with Sarah on this with regard to, you know, what does it cost to educate our kids in school? We have the people we have the kids over here and it's a certain cost, and we have how much is it costing us to send kids out? You know, the tuition coming in doesn't go to the school and it doesn't really affect, that's the cost for that is what it's costing Voluntown and what it's costing Preston. It's not necessarily what's costing us to educate our kids, so.
But we should be able to say, yes, we recognize you're bringing in $300,000 in tuition or whatever the number is. However, we're spending X amount of dollars to send kids out of system. You know, we should be able to have that conversation.
Sure.
It shouldn't always be, look at all this money coming in, this should be part of the budget.
I've heard people on the board do that as wishful thinking, but I don't think that's ever been a serious ask, and I don't think.
Sorry, keep going. I won't cut you off. I'll stop.
I've never been approached seriously about appropriating all that tuition money into their budget.
So I-
Because it goes to the town, and the town, all taxpayers pay for that building, which also brings in those students, not just the educational achievements of the administration.
So I've been on the board 2 years and I've heard it 2 years in a row. Not necessarily a formal ask, but oh, by the way, we're bringing this
Oh,
in.
I think everybody
Yeah.
on this board is well aware of what their
Okay.
wishful thinking is, but, you know, I don't know if it's necessarily, I mean, I guess we could have it as an argument, Gary, to say, you know, yes, yes, the tuition is coming into the town for various reasons. But this is what it costs to educate these students, and, you know, are we paying a premium to send kids out? And maybe that should be a consideration, but the kids are getting, you know, from what I've heard, you know, the Marine Magnet School, the kids are really enjoying that, and it offers a lot of STEM stuff that aren't necessarily applicable here, but that's a conversation for the Board of Education, so. I'll email Stephanie and see if we can get a number for each of those where we're sending them to.
I wouldn't be too specific. I think use Gary's buckets in case we're missing something. Like, we just don't know there might be other tuition going out that's not obvious on the budget. So just like, what's the budget going out? What's the budget coming in for this upcoming budget cycle? And how do you develop your cost per student? So like, if they say their cost per student is $89,000, like, what was the actual math that went behind that?
I think a part of also that cost per student that gets sent out would be the transportation cost for that.
Yeah.
That is an added
huge.
cost of sending a student outside the district. So you have a tuition that you pay, and then you have the transportation
That's what
cost
we're
on top of that. So sending a child outside of the district has two fees, not just one.
I get it. I mean, is this just for our information? Are we trying to change programming here? I don't understand necessarily, you know, why we're getting into the weeds with them.
I personally think that people should know just the cost per student, no matter whether they go to a magnet school, whether they go to Wheeler, but it's taxpayer money that's paying for the cost per student. It's not for any reason or budget, it's just for transparency. That people ask this question.
I know during the school building project, that question was brought up quite often. How much does it cost to teach a child? What is the number? And it was kind of like, oh, that's a hard number to kind of quantify between elementary school and high school and middle school. It kind of be around. Then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, well, this is the number. Boom. It costs this much. And to bring a child in from another district, it's going to cost, boom, this much. So when it comes, it would be a nice number to have as a metric to use in the future, especially with revenue coming in possibly, if you can kind of say, all right, well, they're bringing a student that's going to cost X amount. We teach them for this amount. We can kind of, our growth rate in this town is either at 2% or 5%. We can kind of figure that out. Kind of figure out how much the future cost is going to be for that. Because the cost per student should wrap in the utilities. It should wrap in everything, not just, I would assume, the salary of a teacher teaching a student. Correct? Gary, is that what you're kind of looking at? Are you looking for the whole match of, you take the whole budget, you take the students and everything, you basically divide it up amongst, and that's the true amount of what it costs to send one child through the school system?
That's the way I used to do it, but then I got confused with kids going out and kids coming in. So
Yeah.
I said, give me the three numbers and then I can sort of move the beads around in my mind.
You know where
Yeah.
I'm going with it. It's
Right.
like, all right, it's going to cost, $100,000 to keep the lights on. Well, you take this amount of students, it's going to cost that much.
Right.
Books, take the number, you divide it up. You just keep on adding it to each one of the students.
Right.
All right. That's kind of where I think where Gary's trying to get a number per student.
So how am I asking Stephanie for this information? Like, what's the cost per student for kids that are being educated here in North Stonington, whether it be at the elementary school or the high school, middle school?
Right, but I think you gotta subtract the number of students that are paying tuition here. In other words, if there's 22 students, 10 of them are being paid to the town, you've only got 11 left. 11 divided by our budget is what the cost should be per student. Am I correct in that thinking? Or did I just add it up wrong? I missed one. 12.
No, and that's, I think, going back to me and Sarah's point about to get to the cost per student for here, you're not including tuition kids that are coming from
Right,
Volunteer.
you gotta subtract them off the top. You gotta take them off the top,
And then basically,
however
what
many
is it,
students,
what does it
whether
cost?
whether they're out or they're here, we're still paying for each student. That would be whatever that price is.
I don't think it works that way though, because
Each one's a little different.
because you have the school of choice students who are paying a certain amount, but we already know that amount isn't the same as the in-town kids. So they're still getting the same education and they're still included in that calculation of one teeny bit of the superintendent's salary and the guidance counselor salary and all that stuff. So you really can't pull them out of the total student count.
You mean the students, the tuition coming in? I would assume the tuition coming in should be paying that.
No, it does not cover the cost. The school has told us that does not cover the cost
To run everything.
for that particular student. And they won't be able to split it up by elementary school versus middle high school because they have those central office costs that can't really be contributed to one particular area.
I just think we asked for the cost per student and the methodology and how they came up with it. That
And I can ask her what are their cost per student, including transportation costs and whatever other incidentals are for each of these different schools that she sent us. There's nothing, I mean, that's part of all this educational financials in item number 4. We did send out the non-lapsing account after they gave it to me last week. We're actually back on the 3rd. Everyone get a copy of that non-lapsing report? That went to the Board of Finance. Yeah, November 3rd.
So Mike, I had a question about this. Do we know if there is a process similar to what the town's process is with, a maximum before multiple quotes are required for some of these expenditures?
Do they have to go out to bid, you mean?
Or at least get multiple quotes instead of just going with one company?
I don't know if there's a policy on that.
So the Board of Ed is governed by a separate set of statutes under the Connecticut state statutes, which are surprisingly easy to Google. When I first started on the Board of Finance, people were throwing statutes around. I'd never heard of it before. So you can read through it. It's pretty light. I don't.
And the non-lapsing account is governed by the Board of Ed statutes?
What?
I think that they instituted their own purchasing policy, just like the town voted theirs in. But you would have to ask Board of Ed for a copy of the purchasing policy. I think they did something similar to what we did. Stephanie has her hand up. She is on the meeting.
Yes, Stephanie, please.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, congrats.
Thanks. I'm so sorry. I'm totally unprepared for this conversation, but I can tell you that we created a purchasing policy that looks very similar to the purchasing policy that the town created as well. And I can forward you all a copy of that. Not only did we create that generalized purchasing policy, but the auditor had requested, just like they did from the town, sort of a whole booklet of our financial stuff. And so I can send you the whole booklet.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions about the non-lapsing report that was provided? Give everyone a little quick minute to peruse it. Should we just perhaps ask Stephanie to be at our next meeting? Just kind of like to explain the format of the report. So we're all kind of familiar with how you guys are, formatting these. There's a lot of information on here. Would you be able to do that, Stephanie? Is she still on?
Sure, Mike, I'm happy to be there.
We're on the 21st, is that it?
Your next meeting isn't until December,
December 5th, is that the one?
December 6th. And
What's the,
December,
what's the second meeting?
December 20th, but that'll be the audit presentation.
So no offense to Stephanie, what's the purpose to have Stephanie come? What was the ask there?
Just to perhaps put this up on a board and we can explain how this report kind of works, unless you understand it completely.
It seems to just be an annual spend from year to year. There's tabs for each year. Did I misinterpret it? And it's just a running ledger as to what the money's utilized for.
I just can't see where the,
Yeah, I can't do it on my phone, but if you look on the big screen, it's not too bad.
okay.
Look,
All right, Steph, I'll let you know if we need you to come in, but it would be on the 6th.
That sounds good. I'll put you on my calendar and I'm happy to answer questions, not just about the report, but Gary, you're right. It's just a sort of a running list. So if you need some information about how we came to conclusions about what needed to be purchased, I'm happy to do that as well.
All right, thank you. On to number 5. Anyone have any questions? Any further comments for non-lapsing or Board of Ed financials?
I think when we review that list, we just have to be mindful of the MOA between the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance. Of, when we're looking at it, just keep in mind that is the governing document between us. Who owns what? Who has control over what? So just be mindful when you're reviewing it.
And where is that MOA?
I have a copy of it from 2 years ago, but I don't have a copy.
I'll email it out to the board tomorrow, so you have copies.
Thanks.
Anything further on that item? Capital planning. Just, again, whoever can make it for the field trips on Saturday would be great. So we have, eyes and ears on the ground to see these items, up close and personal. I know some of you attended last night's Board of Selectmen meeting. We're still kind of premature as far as, what our plan is until we get a final presentation from the Board of Selectmen, which I imagine won't be till January 12th, is it? 3rd?
Yeah, you had said you wanted at least a draft from them by January 3rd, so that's what they're working.
Okay. And, we're withholding any kind of guidance until we get a first draft. I think that's the general consensus.
Thought we gave them guidance.
You gave them guidance.
But, okay.
That information was passed along to the Board of Selectmen.
And it was covered again last night because they already gave themselves a raise on the previous guidance. So I'm curious as to how we actually give them guidance. So what would be the process to give them guidance? Because I don't want to play blind man's bluff with them. They should have some sort of idea as to what the capital budget, what the goalposts.
I think you have to see that first 5-year plan to see what's in it. Are we are we going to include 8 line items for things that are needs in that first 5-year plan? And are you gonna, add more to this year's budget to level it out over a 5-year period to purchase something in year 5? Or is it all 1-year asks? We don't know until we know. That's why I'm hard. I think when that preliminary comes out, we say, all right, this is undoable. I think it's premature to say. I mean, we talked about, Dan and I talking last night, we said we might want to, think about what was the budget for capital in the last 5 years. Can you pull that up, Christine, at all?
She told us last meeting it was 420,000.
I know
last
that.
year.
But for 5 year, how much?
5-year average?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it, Christine. You got that? Okay. Just checking.
But that's, I will try to do that for the next meeting. So we kind of have an idea. We can do it longer. All the budgets are on the website.
Right.
So I think that's a good place to start. And I'm not trying to belittle your 500,000 guidance.
Which is a 20% raise over the previous
I
year.
just don't know if we're, going back to last year when you said it should be X percent of the government budget every year. I don't necessarily disagree with that mindset. It's just a question of, what does that look like for us? What's it gonna do to this budgetary season? And, do we have a consensus amongst us that the cutting that we've done for 6 years since I've been here, every year it always happens. It seems to be I hate the kicking the can down the road all the time. And if the guidance I thought and the plan between us and the Board of Selectmen as far as budgeting properly is for them to create a comprehensive plan and us to try to implement it somehow. And if that means we have to add on that, on the capital side, that's going to be part of it.
That's one perspective, but now I'm going back to Dan's comment from the last meeting. By pushing this down the road further, how has this process changed last year's process at all? Because we're going to go into the budget season and capital stacking right up with capital goalposts and the operating budget. So same ride as last year. We've essentially squandered 8 months to get this right so we could go into the operating budget purely looking at operating, and we're not going to be there. Sorry, Dan. I didn't recognize what you're saying last meeting, but I got it now.
As do I.
It just takes time. It takes time.
And I think that's part of this transitional year where, if you have a plan and that we agree that they did a good job vetting, we're going to know where we're going to be for the next 5, 10, or 20 years. And hopefully, if we decide that the average there is X percent of their entire budget, we might come up with a policy that changes things completely, Gary. So it is just about the operating budget. That's the goal. That's at least my goal.
So just
So it's not like the willy-nilly that we do every year that we have.
so it's not it's a percentage of the municipal budget. We
Yeah.
did a clarification.
Yes.
It's not a percentage of the total budget. I just want to clarify that.
Right.
Okay. Let's see where we go. I'm good.
Any other discussion on capital that anyone wants to talk about?
Yeah, what were some of the numbers that were thrown around last night for fire department and the highway?
So last night wasn't the fire department's presentation. Last night was just asking for an additional appropriation for this year.
Okay.
For the highway for this year, just for, regular public works was $900,000. And then for, transfer station, it's 40 or 45,000.
Additional to what we approved what, 3 meetings ago?
That's for this year.
Yeah. Yeah, when we took it out of the undesignated. Okay.
Just keep your voice up, please, Dan. We can't really,
Okay.
thanks.
Yep.
Is Nicole online?
Did you have a question for her?
No, she sent me a text like 20 minutes ago that she couldn't get in, so I was hoping that she made it.
Anyway, we know the Board of Selectmen have their work cut out for them. Do we wish the process would have been earlier? Of course, but it is what it is, and we're gonna deal with it this year and hopefully have, the ability to be more planful in the future. That's the whole goal of this thing.
I mean, I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around this, the average of the 5-year capital plan as it was submitted to us, which is a draft and we expect to be smaller, but the average is 1.24 million a year for the next 5 years. And we're spending 460,000 last year, and it was like 420 the year before, I think. So if we don't have a capital plan, if we can't come up with 1.2 million, what is the plan for the next 5 years? To just keep piecing it at a third of what is these folks have asked for? Like, I guess, is the alternative just to continue the way we've been doing it and just keep rolling these expenses forward, or is there a stopping point? I guess that's the part I don't understand. That I haven't been here long enough to know what happens to some of these expenses that we don't fund. Do they just go away, or does what
No,
happens?
They just get pushed down the next year and the next year and the next year, and they just keep on kind of piling up years down the road.
But some of these are physical assets, so I mean, you can't, if a vehicle or a piece of equipment stops working and you don't have it, you just don't have it. Is that what happens here?
So typically what happens is a couple things. One, the investments aren't made, and so equipment breaks, and then it has to be purchased under an appropriation, which goes to a town meeting, and everybody yells at everybody for not doing the budget right. So, and then, if we do it in tandem with the budget, right, then what happens is we usually have way more expenses than we have budget. And so the easiest way to address the budget is to cut out a capital item, because that's where you can take the biggest cut. So, but in my mind, the goal of decoupling capital from the expense is so that capital is agreed that we have to invest. Now, yes, we're not going to be able to all of a sudden have $1 million to invest in capital. It's something that has to be adjusted over time. If we do capital right, and then we don't have last minute surprise repairs and things like that, we should be able to manage the expenses better. But our pocketbook is only so big, so whatever we invest in capital will have to coincide with some sort of reduction on the expense side. So this is gonna be the hardest year because we're trying to decouple and we're trying to figure out what can actually be spent in capital. We know we need more, but we don't know where we can take more from, right? So Board of Selectmen has the toughest job this year. I think once we get over this hump, right, next year it will be a little bit easier. We might be able to find some additional revenue that can go straight to capital, keep expenses flat if we can for a year, you know, and be able to build it that way. But we can't not do it. Like, we have to do it. The alternative pseudo runs the town, but it doesn't run it well. And I think most people recognize that.
The capital asks for this that are included in this 5-year capital plan are, there's no big variance from the last 6 years. The groups have been asking for this level of funding for the entire time I've been here. So it's just, we just keep pushing it. And so that's why we still have the need. They still need the trucks. They still need to invest in the assets that we have for the town. And we just haven't been able to put the money in. So, you know, there has been the idea through the years to save money towards things, but that's been cut out in prior years. So then you get the bigger price tag. And right now everything seems to cost more money because things just cost more money. So right now it was 900,000 for highway and 45,000 for transfer station capital. And then fire company and everything else is all lumped together as selectmen capital, and that was 681,970. 40,000 for reval capital, and the school was 90,000. But again, these are unedited numbers. Nothing has been changed by the selectmen.
Can you give me those numbers one more time, Christine? Sorry.
So it's 900,000 for transfer station.
Yep.
900,000 for highway, 45,000 for transfer station, 681,970 for selectmen, 40,000 for reval, and 90,000 for the school, for a total of 1,756,970. The one thing I'll say is when Donnie did the presentation last night, he put the loader in transfer station because the current loader that we would be getting rid of is at the transfer station. The new one would go to the highway garage. The old one would go to the transfer station. So that's why we have it funded in highway rather than transfer station, where he presented it as transfer station rather than highway.
Understood.
What does that work out to a mill rate, using this year's mill rate? What does that work out to mills? Is the value of the grand list?
Really, is it like 550 or something a mil?
Can't remember.
We're better now? It's on a sticky note on your computer.
Just under 3 mils.
And that is not including the operating increases that you're gonna have between the schools and the general operating for the town.
Let's keep that aside. I mean, I think
Understand, but it's the whole.
I understand.
ball.
And you and I talked about
Yep.
this, you know, and I think I should hope that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education understand that, you know, it's gonna be a very difficult year, budget season wise, with this. If you're doing this, there's gonna be a lot of scrutiny on where their budgets go. So, you know, obviously there's contractual stuff and whatnot, but, and I think that's why we have to be on board with with each other when this thing comes out, that I guess the way I look at it is when we decided that we were going to build new schools and we got that passed.
We're not allowed to look back.
you
Just
can't-
want to
we
interject.
We have that,
I'll allow it.
that we knew that at the end of that cycle, it was gonna be, we thought it was gonna be a 3 mil increase. And we did a mill the first year without even having to, without a dime going out, we took in a mill. And then the next year, when the numbers started coming in better, we did a half a mil. I think we did another half a mil. I think it ended up being like 2.1 that the school cost us in mill rate, in mills. But it was an investment that we had to make, and it's, we did a good job. We built that thing for $500 a square foot or somewhere. It was way less than anywhere else in the state.
We did look out on the short-term and long-term interest
Absolutely.
on those loans. We hit it as those loans were closing, we were hitting them at the rock bottom price.
It was amazing, yeah, and that was
It was perfect timing on our part. And honestly, when we're talking about capital now, we're hitting it at probably the worst time because interest rates are just keep climbing on everything, used vehicles, new vehicles, just capital loans themselves are going to cost a lot more.
Are we talking about any kind of loan situations, or we're
Not at
talking
this
about?
point.
Not at this point, but I'm talking about if we're buying things that we're going to be financing years upon years.
Yeah.
Fire trucks for the highway department. We have to get loans for those. We're not going to buy those straight out.
These numbers are straight out in the budget. They're not financing it over. a
They're
period of
not
years.
financing anything.
Not with the numbers that are represented here. And I
Okay.
just want to point out that you said it's a 3 mil increase. You have to take away the 415, 420 that we're currently funding for capital for what the increase would be. So it would only be $1.3 million increase of just over 2 mils, not 3.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Everyone understand that, what she just said?
Yes.
I mean, it just comes, I don't want to come out here and say, we need a mill rate increase. We don't know what the numbers are coming out to, but preliminarily, there's no way this can get done without saying we are investing some additional tax dollars to this needed sector of our budget in a responsible way. It's an investment in our town's infrastructure.
You also have an increase in revenue for this year because we have those two CDs that have a wonderful interest rate that we haven't had in the past. And we've changed our sweep account to 2% instead of 0.08%. So both of those things are going to be contributing about $100,000 to the budget that was not anticipated for this fiscal year.
Fantastic. We don't know what's going to happen with the grant list and whether or not, we'll have more revenue to offset some of this, but I almost don't even want to think about that at a point. It's really irrelevant because, all the other inflationary costs that are going to be involved in the Board of Ed budget and the regular selectmen's budget are going to eat into that too. So I think it's just it's a philosophy change that we started talking about last year, and I'm actually excited to work on it once we have what we think is a plan. And I hope everyone else is.
In one of our earlier meetings, I had suggested that as a stopgap, we consider thinking about a maximum of X% of the revenue collected so that we don't lock ourselves into a situation where if revenues come in much lower than expected, that we have this policy that says we need to spend so much of the selectmen's budget on capital.
Well, I don't know whether we're gonna end up with a percentage. If you have a plan and it's a well vetted plan, whatever the percentage is, it's the percentage over those 1, 5, 10, 20 years. And I get exactly what you're saying. And, if we did have a policy, it would have to have language in it that said, if the revenues are drop below this percentage, you know, the, whatever percent is gotta drop accordingly. But I don't know if we're still not ready to decide on any kind of percentage or anything like that, or how we're gonna do this, but I think we need to plan first.
I do agree with Winona that it would be something to explore.
As far as making it a percentage, of
Well,
it.
just having a barrier there to protect the town. Because what if for some reason, you know, the revenue did drop and then we're stuck with a certain percentage for capital?
Well, I agree with you. I'm just saying that if we,
Just voicing support.
Yeah. I get it. And I don't think anybody would not support the fact that if we did have a policy, if this turns into a policy thing where percentages is allocated, there would have to be some language in there to protect the town from a drop in revenue. Anything else with capital? We had 2 sets of minutes that came out. I reviewed them.
I have a quick question before we get to the minutes.
Sure.
Christine shared the capital budget timeline. It's not officially on the agenda. Like, cause it's a standard meeting, can we add it to the agenda? I just would like to have her walk us through it, if that's okay.
We're gonna go over it on the 5th, right?
She won't be.
You
here.
guys are.
Yeah, because this was part of correspondence that we got. So it's
Oh.
on budget too.
It's a digital care package. I've already put together the budget template so that the new person can just plug those numbers in. I have the actuals of revenue of last year, so they can just plug and play. And then we did the budget calendar, so that's good to go. So a digital care package.
Is there a new person?
But if you want me to talk about what was sent out, we can go back to correspondence.
Yeah.
So I sent out the digital file for this. So there's 2 tabs within the budget timeline. One is just this straight up regular budget timeline that you've seen in the past. The other one incorporates the capital. I put in all the dates of actions that have happened up until this point, so that you have it. And next year, it's easy to just update this for what's happening. So included on this calendar is the visit to the Center for Emergency Services and Public Works to view the existing capital items this Saturday. We think that the selectmen are going to continue to review the capital on their special meeting that they're having next Tuesday. An email went out today to everyone to give them a heads up that the budget deadline is going to be January 12th. So that they have their December and January meetings to discuss for boards and commissions so that they can have time to approve that. And then in December, you guys will need to go over whatever you're asking for people's submissions. So I'll email you the form that was used last year so you can make updates to it and then have that sent out so that people can get everything back. So basically we started in August with sending out the ask for everything to be due in October. October and November was reviewed by the Board of Selectmen. With hopefully a presentation to you all on Wednesday, January 3rd by the Board of Selectmen for their capital so that they can then begin working on putting together the regular budget. So this calendar reflects all the regular presentations that you've had in the past. I confirmed with the selectmen that I don't think are looking to move the presentations to their Tuesday night meetings. They're fine for them to be your Wednesday night meetings. There was no discussion of any additional groups that there should be presentations from. Presentations should be kept to operating since the capital will already be decided hopefully at that point. And then this all reflects having the annual town meeting on Monday, May 6th. So just keeping that in mind as you're looking at all the other dates.
So where we see Wednesdays, that's an assumption that there'll be a Board of Finance meeting that day
Correct. So you can use this when
Yeah.
creating your meeting schedule at your next meeting.
for the 2024 schedule.
And all of them in March are our meetings as well.
And I did put in, you had Monday meetings last year to review information that you received at your Wednesday meetings for presentations. So I did leave those in. So it's up to you if you want to take those out, but that was Monday, March 11th and Monday, March 18th.
Right. I think we ended up using them all.
And you can change this at any time as you're moving forward. This is just a draft.
I love. Because you won't have to worry about it. I can't help myself, sorry. We're gonna miss you. All right, so. And remind me, when do we normally set the schedule? For
December.
In
December.
December. Cause I know I went and looked and there's nothing scheduled from January. January's empty on the town calendar.
Yeah, if you set it at your next meeting on December 6th, then the ask can go out to everyone to start putting together their budgets. But again, they had the heads up today, so no one should be surprised.
Do you have your budget spreadsheet that you created?
I can access it.
Would it
It's
be okay with the chair if she brought it up on the screen so we could orient to it?
well, I mean, it's no different than last year.
I know, but it's been a year since we looked at it.
I don't know if I can share it because I'm remoting into my
Oh, it's
computer.
okay. No worries.
So I don't know if you can share a computer that's shared with a computer.
Probably not.
But I can email it to you if you guys want to have it. I'll do that tomorrow.
Thank you. When's your last day? Because we'll be sure to send you all the questions on your last day.
Wednesday, the 22nd is my last.
Right before Thanksgiving. Perfect. I don't have any more questions.
Any other questions in the return to correspondence? On to the minutes. We have minutes from our meeting April 19th, 2023. I'll move to approve the minutes as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Dan. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Yeah, we seated you. Okay. You're abstaining, okay. One abstention. Amy Friend. And then from our last meeting, November 1st. I move to approve those minutes as presented.
Second.
Second from Dan. Any discussion?
Hold on. All right, thanks.
You took good notes, Amy. Yeah. I mean, I think it's all important information that, you know, we'd like to have in the minutes. You know, sometimes we'll keep it a little bit more vague. Or, I
Yeah,
think it's, it was good to have, all this stuff in this particular set of minutes.
I know when we've talked about numbers in the past, we usually put like in parentheses, unverified, because we don't want to hold ourselves to a set of numbers that are in the minutes. So maybe in just in the future, just if it's a number that, like 30,000, say unverified.
I can change that if you want. And I was just gonna say, if there's something that anybody
I'm
does
I'm
just
fine with
wanna
it.
email me about, like ever, they could include in the minutes, like just tell me.
Yeah. I'm fine with them. They're very detailed. I like them. It's just, I know
I
we don't
always
want to.
put their, I put a link to the recording. If it's a meeting there's a lot of back and forth where it might be hard to capture certain things, so. And if that's the case, less is more.
Mm-hmm. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, 6-0. Just for the record, you're standing in for Paul. Okay. I should have said that at first when we did roll call, and I meant to do that, but we got into something about Waynona and Winona, and I lost my mind. Any public comment? No public in the room, no one online? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Everyone's